Hello everyone and welcome to another video. This is the third tablet video that I'm making this year, and it's honestly for a good reason. We started off with the Surface Pro 11, which was on the expensive side, and then we continued with the Lenovo Xiaoxin Tablet, which is surprisingly affordable for what it is. And today, we have something in between, the Lenovo Yoga Tab Plus. It currently sells for 980 Canadian dollars, but last month I got it on sale at around $700. So the moral of the story is wait for a sale and then get it if it's sub $700. Alternatively, you can get a very similar tablet from AliExpress. The Chinese variant has the exact same hardware and very similar software. I already talked about the China spec tablets in the Xiaoxin video, and the moral of that was that aside from a couple Chinese apps here and there was virtually no difference. Unlike the Surface Pro and the Xiaoxin tablet, this one comes with a pen and a keyboard. Let's have a look at the specs. We have a Snapdragon Gen 3 octa-core processor which came out in October of 2023, and it's still among the best tablet processors. We also have 16GB of RAM and 256GB of UFS 4.0 storage. UFS 4.0 means that we get a surprisingly fast storage on this tablet, and we'll test that out later in the video. In terms of the display, we have a 12.7-inch one with a resolution of 2944 by 1840 and a peak brightness of 900 nits. For comparison, both the newest iPad Air and the Surface Pro 11 have a peak brightness of 600 nits. The Xiaoxin tablet also has a peak brightness of 600 nits. It also supports HDR and Dolby Vision. Otherwise, in terms of ports, we have a USB 3.2 Gen 1 port as well as the 3 dots to connect the keyboard. There is no microSD card slot, nor there's a 3.5mm headphone microphone jack. I know this is a hot take, but I'm kinda okay with not having those ports. At this point, everyone has wireless earbuds, and I don't have any microSD cards lying around anyway. In terms of connectivity, we have Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. It doesn't have GPS, although the cheaper Lenovo tablet had it. It's quite hard to understand Lenovo models sometimes. To be completely fair though, I don't know how useful GPS would be on a tablet that doesn't have cellular connectivity. Also, although it supports Wi-Fi 7, it doesn't support 6 GHz networks. Out of the box, the tablet came with Android 14, which is branded as ZUI 16. I had a system update that updated it to a later version of ZUI 16, and then I got a second update that updated it to ZUI 17, which is Android 15. The Xiaoxin tablet also got an update to Android 15, and it seems like the software is once again pretty much identical. Also a quick note here, I wasn't really able to tell the difference between Android 14 and 15. With the specs out of the way, let's have a look at what we get in the box. Aside from the tablet, we get the Lenovo keyboard. It has a nice pleather texture on the bottom, and the keyboard itself is surprisingly solid. Definitely miles ahead of the Surface keyboard, and cheaper as well. I also really like the fact that it has a very similar design to other Lenovo keyboards. The trackpad is on the smaller side though, and we'll see how well it performs later in the video. We also get a Lenovo pen, which is different from the one that I got for the cheaper tablet. It charges wirelessly, and it has a couple of nice features up its sleeve. Lastly, we get a USB-C cable and a USB-C charger. Just a quick note here, Lenovo tablets are very picky with chargers. If you're lucky, the included 45-watt adapter will charge your tablet at 45 watts, but any other charger that you use will be limited to around 25 watts. And with that, we can get to the material quality. The tablet is all glass in front as you would expect, and on the back, the camera area is glass, whereas the rest is all metal. There's very little screen flex, which is what I'd like to see. There's a power button and 2 volume buttons on the tablet, and they are surprisingly well made. The peripherals are also well made. The keyboard has very little flex when in use, but the whole assembly is plastic, and if you bend it, you can hear the trackpad click. In reality though, you won't bend it this way, so I don't think this is a huge deal. Either way, the trackpad won't actually recognize it as a click. The pen is quite light, and as I mentioned earlier, it charges wirelessly. As part of the keyboard assembly, you get a magnetic stand. It feels nice to the touch, but it's not the easiest to operate. Since it's magnetic, if you want to change the angle, sometimes the whole thing will come off the tablet. You eventually get used to it, but there is a learning curve for sure. With that, let's move on to how this tablet fares in daily use. First and foremost, the screen is just great. It's a high resolution screen, so I can't count the pixels, and it gets quite bright. Although the 900 nit maximum brightness value is typically for HDR content, the tablet has a temporary peak brightness option where it will automatically increase the brightness all the way to 900 nits at the expense of some battery use and some heat. This is a lifesaver if you want to use the tablet outdoors. The high refresh rate is really nice in daily use. This is just one of those things that you wouldn't think you'd need until you try it out. And once you do try it out, you can't really go back. Even if you don't have a high-end device, a high refresh rate screen will make the device feel much snappier and quicker than it actually is. You can set the refresh rate at 60 Hz to conserve some battery life, or up to 144 Hz to get the best experience. I choose the balance mode where the tablet will automatically determine what refresh rate to use according to what I'm doing. It also takes the battery level into account, which is nice. I mentioned in the other Lenovo tablet video that the auto brightness was a little bit on the conservative side. This tablet doesn't have that problem. I've never had to manually adjust the brightness. This tablet has a 6-speaker setup from Harman Kardon, and it just sounds amazing. I honestly don't know how else to explain it. Let's give it a listen. Firstly, it definitely goes loud enough. Secondly, I'm not an audiophile, but for me, the bass is there, the highs are there, the lows are there. I don't know what else to expect, I don't know what else to ask for. We have a fingerprint reader built onto the lock button, and it works surprisingly well. I usually don't have great luck with fingerprint readers, but I've never had an issue with this one. There's also a face recognition option, but it seems like it's only using the camera and it doesn't have any extra sensors, so it didn't seem all that safe to me. The fact that the tablet warns me that it's not as safe is also not good news. Therefore, I just didn't end up using the face recognition, and I suggest you do the same. There's also an option to keep the tablet unlocked at known, trusted places. This feature is called Extended Unlock, and when I first saw it, I was excited. In theory, for example, if you're home and if you lock the tablet, it won't actually lock, so when you press the lock button, it'll immediately show you the home screen. In theory though, on the screen I'll see that the tablet is quote-unquote unlocked by Extended Unlock, but the tablet itself would still be locked. I think there's a bug somewhere that needs to be fixed in a future software update. This tablet is more than quick enough for all sorts of daily tasks. For the last month, I've been using this tablet both as a tablet and as a laptop with the keyboard on, and I've never come across any stutters or slowdowns. In fact, I wrote the script for this video on this tablet as well. The interface is quite nice. In fact, it's quite similar to iPadOS and macOS. It's easy to navigate, and it's designed in a way that just makes sense. For whatever reason though, the widgets take way too much space on the home screen. There's also a PC mode, which is quite useful when you want to have the keyboard attached and when you want to use the tablet as a laptop. In this mode, there's a taskbar that resembles the Windows 10 taskbar, and the icons are closer to one another. Functionality-wise, there is no difference though. Multitasking works well, especially in PC mode. In regular mode, you can have up to 4 apps as a grid and as many as you want as a floating screen. Not all apps play nice in all modes, but in general, I can say it works well. But since this tablet is closer in price to a 2-in-1 device, I'm gonna be a bit more critical. This might be an Android issue in general, but we need to be able to open multiple instances of the same app. Certain apps like Google Chrome do allow you to open 2 instances side by side, but Microsoft Word, for example, doesn't allow you to do this. Also, sometimes some apps don't want to be opened in side-by-side mode, but a restart or a forced close seem to be fixing this. Similarly, when I have Chrome open for example and I want to change tabs in PC mode, the status bar pops up and it prevents me from changing tabs. Not fun. I normally wouldn't mind these, but again, this is not a cheap tablet, so I'm gonna be a bit more critical. There's one feature though that I will not be complaining about. Let's say you turned off auto rotation and then you rotated the tablet. Normally, the screen would just stay as is and it would not tell you to do anything. The only way to actually change the rotation would be to re-enable auto rotation and then disable it once again. On this tablet though, there's an option when you rotate the screen, a little icon will pop up with a rotation icon, and if you press that, the screen will rotate just once and your auto rotation will remain disabled. Fantastic feature. With that, let's move on to the Lenovo keyboard. I mentioned earlier that the material quality is pretty good. The keyboard is fun to type on, and for such a thin keyboard, there is a surprising amount of travel. The keyboard also looks like any other Lenovo keyboard, which I really like. I like a coherent line of products. One small issue that I do have with the keyboard is the fact that the L key seems to be slightly less responsive than the other keys on the keyboard. Not a huge deal for me, but a little bit better QA might be required. It's not a backlit keyboard, but it has some useful shortcut buttons instead of the F keys, such as the option to turn the microphone off. The trackpad on the other hand is bad. It's on the smaller side and I often have trouble dragging items around or selecting a bunch of words. This might be an Android issue, but at the end of the day you're paying for a keyboard trackpad combo, so you would expect the trackpad to work properly. The palm rejection on this trackpad is also not the best. So I rarely use the trackpad and instead I have a Bluetooth mouse. I got this tablet bundled with a keyboard and a pen, but if I had the choice, I don't think I would get the keyboard. This keyboard trackpad combo, while the keyboard is fine, but the trackpad in particular, it feels like a trackpad from a Windows laptop before Windows Precision. With that, let's move on to the pen support. Unlike the other tablet that I tested, this pen charges wirelessly, which is a huge plus. It also magnetically attaches to the top of the tablet. This was an issue that I had with the Xiaoxin Tablet, and I'm glad that this one has a much better placement for the pen. Like all modern pens on the market, it connects to the tablet via Bluetooth. It has a small vibration motor and a speaker, so when you're writing with this pen, it feels like you're writing on a piece of paper. I love this, but if you don't, there's an option to disable it. Taking notes with this pen on this tablet is fun. I use this tablet on the daily to take notes, and I haven't had any issues. There's barely any delay, and from my personal perspective, it just seems to be better than an Apple Pencil or a Surface Pen. Before we look at the benchmarks and gaming, let's have a quick look at the battery life. It is a 10,200 mAh battery and it has 45 watt fast charging. To test out the battery life, I created a realistic looking scenario with a bunch of apps open and 4K YouTube at 50% brightness with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth both enabled. Under those circumstances, the battery lasted a total of 5 hours. Compared to the other Lenovo tablet which also had a 10,200 mAh battery, this one falls short. Honestly though, to me that's understandable since this tablet has a much more powerful processor and a brighter screen. Either way, I think 5 hours is somewhat acceptable. There are a couple of options to optimize the battery life. Firstly, you have the option to limit the charging to 80%. Secondly, there's an option to keep the battery level between 40 and 60%. This one makes sense since batteries are best stored at around 50%, and if all you do is to keep the tablet plugged in at home, there's no point in going up all the way to 100%. This is what I do, so I'm usually home with the tablet plugged in, so I have that option enabled and the battery level floats between 40 and 60% depending on what I'm doing. With the 45 watt charger that comes in the box, the tablet takes an hour and 44 minutes to charge from 0% to 100%. It charges at around 28 watts throughout the process. This tablet has a USB-C port and it's a USB 3.2 Gen 1, so theoretically it supports a maximum of 5 gigabits per second. It can also be used as an HDMI port, and that's a nice plus. It supports Wi-Fi 7 networks, but since my network is Wi-Fi 6, we won't be able to fully test the speeds. With a Wi-Fi 6 network though, theoretically we could get a maximum of gigabit upload or download, and this tablet got around 635 download and 385 upload. These are pretty much normal for a Wi-Fi 6 device. When I use a USB-C to Ethernet adapter though, I can get 2.5 gigabits with a 2.5 gig adapter, and with a 5 gig adapter, for whatever reason, I only get gigabit speeds. That might just be a driver thing, but it's regardless nice to be able to connect an Ethernet adapter and get higher speeds. This is very useful if you're trying to download a large game. Over Wi-Fi, it tends to take longer, and if you're actually playing a game, the lag will be better with an Ethernet adapter. Either way, when it comes to an Ethernet adapter, your mileage may vary depending on the adapter that you have. With that, we can move on to the synthetic benchmarks. We have a 256 gig UFS 4.0 storage, so let's check out how fast it is. We see that both in terms of read and write speeds, we get around 1 gigabyte per second. This is honestly pretty good for a tablet storage. Since we don't have a microSD card slot, we can't expand the storage. I'm not too familiar with Antutu benchmark, but let's give that a shot as well. Antutu is not available on the Play Store, so I had to download it directly from their website, and once I did, we get around 1.8 million points. It seems to be performing fairly well, only falling behind the Snapdragon 8 Elite and the MediaTek 9300. At this price point, I really doubt you could ask for more. Similarly, in Geekbench, we got 2027 points in single core and 6179 points in multi-core. According to Geekbench's built-in comparison chart, it seems to be doing quite well. And in GPU, we got 14,905 points, which once again is the chart topper according to Geekbench. And with that, let's finally get to gaming. I downloaded a bunch of games on this tablet: Call of Duty Mobile, EAFC Mobile, Fortnite, Alien Isolation, Modern Warships, and Rainbow Six Siege. Let's start with Call of Duty. With the graphics and the refresh rate set to max, the game is completely playable with no frame drops or freezes. The tablet does warm up to a certain degree, but it's not uncomfortable. EAFC Mobile is another game that you can comfortably play on this tablet. Once again, we have maxed out settings and I haven't noticed any slowdowns or stutters. By the way, I play these games with the sound off, but if you prefer sound on, the speaker setup will come in very handy. Fortnite seems to be one of the more demanding games, so let's give that a shot as well. The other Lenovo tablet that I tested couldn't really play this game, so I started off with the lowest settings. In the lowest settings, we kept hitting the maximum frame limit, so I went up all the way to high, and even in high settings, we hit the frame limiter, which is 90 FPS. In high settings, we seem to be hitting the 90 FPS limit, and the game is completely playable. I'm not a huge fan of Fortnite Mobile, but regardless, it's fun on this tablet. The rest of these games is completely playable as well, so it's safe to say that gaming on this tablet is not a problem. Overall, what do I think of this tablet? First and foremost, in daily tasks, it's quite similar to the cheaper Lenovo tablet that I tested last month. It's quick, it's snappy, and I haven't come across any slowdowns, stutters, or annoying bugs. The screen is great, it's a high resolution screen with a great brightness and a high refresh rate. I'd say the only difference that I could immediately see is gaming between this tablet and the other Lenovo tablet, and that is in the Yoga Tab's favor. What is not in Yoga Tab's favor is the battery life. The Xiaoxin tablet lasted significantly longer than this tablet, 7.5 hours compared to 5 hours, but that is kind of understandable considering the fact that this tablet is much more powerful, but I wouldn't say no to a larger battery. Either way, in daily tasks, this tablet is completely fine. In gaming, I don't have that many points of comparison, but at least compared to the Lenovo tablet, the other Lenovo tablet, This one seems to be doing much better. If you need a tablet that you also want to use as a laptop, this is a no-brainer in my opinion. As a tablet, it does everything that it's supposed to be doing really well. And as a laptop, it's passable. In gaming, it's completely fine as well. However, if you're not looking for a tablet that you can also use as a laptop, but you still want a powerful device, I suggest you get the AliExpress variant that doesn't come with a pen or a keyboard, and you can order the pen separately. That would be cheaper and you would still get the same performance. If gaming is not a concern, I say you get the cheaper Xiaoxin tablet, and all the links will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking this video, checking out my other videos, and subscribing to my channel. Take care.